I spoke about those recent home protests with former Attorney General Bill Barr, and I also spoke about the manner of the arrest of Peter Navarro and whether handcuffing Navarro, charged with 2 misdemeanors, was over the line. Peter Navarro was recently charged with 2 misdemeanors, not felonies, misdemeanors, and he was arrested at Reagan National Airport in handcuffs out at the airport. And when he went before the judge questioned, why such a aggressive arrest into his 2 misdemeanors. It was an Obama-appointed federal judge. Why do you think he was put in handcuffs? He lives across the street from the FBI.
Right. I don't know why he was, and I don't know whether there's a legitimate explanation, but my reaction seeing that is that that was an abuse and that was overkill. And I've never liked these efforts to humiliate people by making arrests publicly like that are not necessary when the person could come in and surrender themselves. As is usually done in white-collar crime. So absent some real reason for that.
Like a passport at Dulles, going on an international flight, right, might be a reason.
Some reason to think that the person is actually, make a run for it. But when I got into office under Trump, I did talk to Chris Wray about this, and I said I thought some of these very high-profile raids, such as the one on Roger Stone's house in Florida, which is a little bit suspicious because CNN was waiting outside with cameras, that I didn't want to see that stuff anymore. They better have a damn good reason to go in with SWAT teams and so forth and conduct those kind of heavy-handed perp walks against people, because it smacks of politics.
Who would you imagine would make that decision for something like 2 misdemeanors of Peter Navarro? Now, he's not warm and fuzzy. He's probably been a little bit rough talking to the FBI. Would that be a decision made by the Attorney General, likely, the head of the FBI, the agents, special agents making the arrest?
I know of cases before I gave the instruction I did, where it was usually made by the lead prosecutor in conjunction with the head of the FBI field office that was involved. And that's as high as it would have to go. And I said, any high-profile person that, is a white-collar criminal, you better have a reason to do that, to do that kind of heavy-handed raid on the person.
You mentioned FBI Director Christopher Wray. He's recently said about China, about, he and many others talk about how dangerous China is to our national security. You, as Attorney General, were on the CFIUS, the interagency organization that checks out Chinese or foreign investments here in the United States. What did you discover or learn when you were Attorney General about China?
Well, my undergraduate degree was Chinese and Chinese studies, and I went into the CIA originally as a China expert, so I've always been interested in it. And the reason I did that is because I considered China the long-term threat, and I think that's how it's played out. I think there's no question they are the word existential is so overused today, but they are the major threat to the United States, not just militarily, but technologically. And people forget that since the 1890s, at least, if not earlier, the United States has been the technological giant in the world. That is what has given us our prosperity, our ability to give opportunity to generation after generation, living better each time, and also our military prowess and strength. And we're going to lose that to the Chinese. The Chinese are a very industrious, able people, and they have the benefit of a totalitarian regimented system without the downside. Let me explain that. They can focus on the key technologies and through an all-of-country, the government, their academics, their business, and so forth, go to attack these various technological areas. Now, the weak side of a regimented society is they don't innovate, right? They steal the West's innovation. So they have the benefit of regimenting in an industrial policy, and then they get the innovation by stealing it from the United States. They are the biggest counterintelligence and counterespionage threat in the United States by far. They're all over the place, and they don't just operate the way we used to in the Cold War with our spies operating out of the embassy. They operate through all kinds of non-traditional ways to collect intelligence.
But with CFIUS, so what sort of is the standard? Because there's a controversy right now in North Dakota where they want to buy some land to have a mill, and some local people don't want it, some want it because it'll beat jobs. But is there a standard that CFIUS employs in deciding like which company can come in from China or from some other country? I mean, where's that line?
Well, the line is whether the ownership of a property or a technology or an American company would undermine the national security, and whether there are steps, so-called mitigation steps, that could be taken to protect the security of the country that would allow the deal to go forward but still put in safeguards. And if people determine that there's a threat to national security, undermining of our safety, and that there are no mitigation steps that will take care of that, the deal is shut. The president ultimately makes the decision, but the deal would be shut down.
18 U.S.C. 1507 statute, you probably heard a lot about it recently, you probably knew about before, makes it unlawful to protest, I'm just cutting it, with the intent to influence a judge.
Right.
Would you, if you were Attorney General, be prosecuting the people who are gathering outside the homes of the Supreme Court justices now protesting and chasing them in restaurants?
Absolutely, no question about it. It's clear-cut in the statute, and the purpose of going to their homes and violating the plain letter of that statute is precisely to influence the judges.
And why do you think the Attorney General isn't?
I think it's political. I think they happen to agree with the protesters. I think the argument that we believe in First Amendment stuff is nonsense. The First Amendment has always contemplated time, place, and manner restrictions. And, just because people are protesting, you can't go in and go into Congress and interfere with their process. It's sort of the same concept with January 6th, which is ultimately we're trying to protect the integrity of the process and not have people bully or intimidate one of the branches of government when they're doing their job. And I don't think there's an excuse for it.
Thank you to the former Attorney General, but there is more. I'll have the rest of my conversation with General Barr tomorrow night right here at 6 p.m. Eastern.